Hi guys, this is take 2 of this week's video, which is take 3 of last week's video because I filmed a video last week but then the sound was terrible and the light was terrible, so I've taken off the microphone. It was all crackly and I've moved location. This is the brightest spot in the house, I think, with the additional light from this thing here. The previous video that I've just done, I ended up just talking about the fish tank. So for this video, I just wanted to touch on plants that are dying this time of year, because it is the time of year for plants to die and it can be very sad, especially if it's a plant that's important to you. But also, this isn't going to be like this is how to save them, because we know that. Give them more light, give them more humidity, give them more warmth, and that's all you can do really. Unless there's like pests, in which case treat them, or root rot, in which case treat it. I'm really too old to be sat backwards on a sofa. It's not doing anything for my knees, but I'm not turning this sofa around. So first, I just want to discuss a little bit of the difference between plants going dormant and plants just not growing. So a lot of the houseplants we have are tropical, so they don't grow in winter, but they're not actually dormant. Well, I suppose technically they are because they're not growing, but it's not something that they're doing. Some plants go dormant in winter and they actually need that cold snap to regrow the next year. There aren't many houseplants that require that, but there are some that would benefit from a bit of cold, and that orchids do, Christmas cactus. I don't know why. I'm assuming it's something that they've developed. Orchids and Christmas cactus, the ones we have in our houses, are tropical. They wouldn't get that cold snap, but they do benefit from it in a home environment. So I don't know how we discovered that, but it is a thing. Apparently, in order for your Christmas cactus to bloom, you need to give it certain things in summer and then give it an appropriate dark cold spell, and that will make it bloom better. But I don't know why, because they wouldn't do that in the wild, would they? Would they? They wouldn't have a cold snap in like the Amazon. These guys would know. They would know. They've never been. These guys have never been to the Amazon. They were born in the UK. I've already gone off topic. I would do like a script, but I have no like acting skill whatsoever. So I would just be like reading it like. So I was just gonna end up waffling instead. There are some plants, houseplants, that you may have that will go dormant in the more like they're meant to go dormant. So one example would be, I can't think of the name, Oxalis Triangularis. A lot of people, I believe you get them in gardens in the US. We don't tend to have them in the UK, I don't think, unless they just bypassed me. But you can have them like wild in non-tropical areas. They're actually quite invasive, but they do go dormant in winter, and they tend to bloom this time of year. Maybe they've just passed their blooming stage, and you can cut the blooms off and that will preserve their energy a bit and keep them going a bit longer. I don't. I think the flowers are quite pretty, but you can cut the leaves off, but if you don't, the plant can essentially suck the energy out of them back into the tubers, and then that will help it have more energy for growing next year. Alocasia have a corm and they do die back into it naturally, like in the wild, but they don't always, they come from quite tropical areas, so it's not necessarily triggered by the cold. But if they are cold, basically they wouldn't do that in the wild, but they do it here. They are likely to die back into the corm if they sense that it's winter. Nowadays, especially if you live in a new house that's really well insulated and you have bright light, there is no reason for it to know that it's winter. So it might not. I'm not saying that like all your alocasias will definitely lose all their leaves all winter, because they might not. They may keep on growing, but just if they do, that's okay. It will probably come back next year as long as you keep the soil fairly moist. It will be okay. The video last week, which I'm kind of refilming but it's a bit different, was about my maidenhair fern that I've nurtured for so long, and it, well basically I let it dry out too much and it went crispy literally overnight. It's on my dressing table, I see it all the time, and yet it died. So ferns aren't that bothered by winter. It'll probably slow its growth rate down just because there's a bit less light, but they're not that bothered about the cold. They're not huge on frost, but they're not that bothered about the cold. So if you have a maidenhair fern in a similar position, what you need to do is cut all the fronds off. As sad as it sounds, keep the soil moist and it will come back. Having said that, if you don't want to nurture what is essentially a pot of soil all winter, you can just chuck it and buy another one. I know it's like, it sounds sad, but I do get that, like, nurturing a pot of soil can really make you lose joy for the hobby, and I wouldn't want that. So this time of year is just like, it's a standard time to lose a lot of plants, and because the other plants aren't growing, it can be a little bit disheartening when nothing good seems to be happening. For some reason this year all my pothos have gone wild. They apparently really like this time of year. I'm having to water them more often than I was in summer because they're growing that quickly. I don't know how they've got all turned around with seasons, but I may as well leave them ignorant. I don't have my grow lights on as much as I usually do because I've moved them all upstairs. They're getting better light, and this thing already uses plenty of power. I'm not that bothered about using much more. But yeah, they seem to really like it up there. Even though they weren't that fussed in summer, they quite like it in winter. If you do see your plants struggling, just be careful with what you do to help them, because what works in summer doesn't always work quite so well in winter. So theoretically it should. So if your plant looks like it's sad, it's probably because the light is lower. And you might think, well, I'll just move it into a window. But if the window's cold, that's not going to help it. In fact, you don't want to force it to grow faster and then it be cold, and I don't even know if it would, but you just risk shocking it. So if you do move it somewhere brighter, it can be an idea to give it a heat mat, or just make sure it's not too bad. Here in the UK, I don't know if it's just my experience of houses, but we tend to have radiators underneath windows. So what you can do is put like a bowl of water or something on the radiator just to create that bit of humidity. I see a lot of people saying not to put plants near radiators. It's not a luxury I have. My house is quite small. My radiators are quite big, and like they're all underneath the window, so I've got plants up there. I've never had a problem with them, and I have, like, this is quite a big gap between like I'm pointing at the wrong window, between like the radiator and the windowsill. It's not normally that big, so they're normally a lot closer, but I've not had an issue with it. I think radiators are better for plants than like heat vents, just because it's not as aggressive. It's not like blasting them. It's more of a sort of a soft heat. Obviously don't put your plants on the radiator or right next to the radiator, like touching it, but there's worse places to have them. If you do have an aquarium, it's a good idea to crowd your plants around them, because they do get good light. Like, these are essentially they're not grow lights, they're aquarium lights, but they will have enough of the same attributes for it to potentially benefit your plants. They're also a great place to propagate if you feel you're losing a plant and you don't want to propagate it because you're scared it's too cold because it's winter. This thing it's designed to stay the same, because these guys they don't like change. So yeah, it can be a good place to keep them. As always, don't get a fish tank just for your plants. It's a lot of work. If you are interested in propagating and you like the idea of something like this, go for an AeroGarden. There's no fish. And it's very much plug and play. You don't have to like know anything. I've got my... Oh, that's what the original video last week was. So I was doing all these plant care videos, like, this is how you look after your plants, whilst in the background, fairly obviously, was a Monstera adansonii that looked like crap. Like, it had vines. I propagated it last week whilst I was filming, but I couldn't upload it because the quality was terrible. So, I'll sit up a bit. So I propagated it and put it in the AeroGarden. I think I've got 4 bits in there. But basically the reason it looked so bad, so Monstera Adansonii I think are a great beginner plant because they tend to tell you really obviously what the problem with them is. They're not great for like, so when a Monstera Adansonii is hungry, you can tell straight away, like their leaves go really mottly and it just looks hungry, and it doesn't look for a plant. But when they're difficult to kill, but if they have an issue, they look like crap really quickly. Like they will drop their leaves like that. They're just like, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling very well. Drop all my leaves. And then you're like, oh my god. And then it's like, oh no, I'm fine now. And then like we'll regrow. But obviously they're not going to regrow all along the vine because that would be too simple. They only grow right at the end. So I had this Monstera Adansonii that it had been growing up a moss pole, but I took it off the moss pole, which I think was my mistake. I don't think it liked that at all. So I had these vines which were like, I mean, they were really long, and it just looked with like a few dead leaves along them and then like growth at the ends. It was ridiculous, and I just kept forgetting to do anything about it. And every time I was editing a video, which is mortifying enough because you have to watch yourself, I was looking in the corner going, oh my god. Look at that poor plant. But that's been sorted now, and I'm hoping that I will be able to propagate I've got a few nodes, and I'll just put it back in with the mother plant and it will be fine. The roots are incredible on that thing. I think it pretty much grew up, as soon as I took it off the moss bowl, it was like, I hate this. I'm not going to grow any more leaves. I'm just going to concentrate on roots, which is very much a Monstera thing to do, like just concentrate on roots. My Thai is currently no more leaves, aerial roots for days, which I'm definitely letting it do because I think if they grow it into the tank it'll look really cool. Also I'm interested to see if they grow into the tank if they will produce pups. Obviously no guarantees because aerial roots don't work like that. Aerial roots do whatever they like, and if you think that the aerial roots go towards the water, you would be wrong. They grow towards the water, then they're like, oh, water, and then they move. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Basically, don't feel bad if your plants are dying. It's the time of year when plants are going to die. It's just what it's like. I used to have a really, really long pothos, and I've just cut it all back because, for a start, it'll bush out more because I've got quite a few vines in there. If you've only got one vine, by the way, it's unlikely to bush out more. You might cut a vine and it might start from another node, but that's not going to be like bushy, it's going to be two vines. So if you want it to bush, you need to cut the nodes, propagate them, or what you can do, what I did with the Monstera, and I did it with my golden pothos, I'll show you actually, hang on, I will leave you with the fish. Right, so this basically grew really viney and it burnt to a crisp, so I just got left with a load of vines. So what I've done, it used to be two, so I bought one and then and it was just like a bog standard supermarket golden pothos. So I bought a cutting from Etsy because I wanted a super variegated one, which is actually the one that's growing, which is really exciting. And I grew them together, put them outside, got sunburnt because I didn't look after it properly because I'm me. So what I've done is I've cut it back to nothing. Got one leaf here, we've got another leaf here, but it's like crisped up. This is perfectly normal for winter and it's next to the AeroGarden, so it's quite bright light. It's a bit of a compromise with the AeroGarden this time of year because it is bright light, we do get this. However, the next leaf should be more adapted, so it might not do it again. It might, in which case I'll just move it further away, but it's growing so well that I'm not really that fussed. So what I've done is I've curled the vines around the pot here and then buried a few of them. You can pin them down with hair grips. It doesn't work for me because the soil's that airy that they just don't stay. So I just lay some of them down and hopefully some of the nodes will root, and then what happens is you'll get new growth sometimes. So I've got a leaf there, and then there's a leaf, is that a leaf? There's a leaf hiding in there somewhere. There, yeah. I'm hoping to get a few more at this end. But basically the more, like, each one of these will turn into its own vine, and the more vines you have, the more bushy it looks. So that is what I'm hoping for. It's not like a great time of year to be doing this. It is a great time of year to be doing this, but you need to be able to kind of look ahead and think how good it'll be this time next year. Oh, there's another one. I've got another one growing on here, another little root. So what was 2 vines, I may potentially have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all from the same 2 plants. So I am very excited about that. What was I saying about? Oh, that bit's dead. Never mind. So you need to just, if you do it this time of year, it should be established by the time it gets to summer, and you should be done with all the leaves. Like, so when new vines start, you can get weird shaped leaves. You can get them where they just like give up halfway through and crisp off. But by doing it this time of year, you kind of get that over with by the time it gets to summer, and then once summer hits, it can really go. Also, just remember, like, some plants don't care that it's winter, they just don't care. And it's not always plants that don't care about anything. Sometimes it's plants that are really picky but just decide that now is the time. So if you've watched my videos for a while, you'll know that I had an Orbifolia that I keep having to bring back from the brink of death. My rabbit ate it. This was how it started. I bought it, my rabbit ate it. Calathea are safe for rabbits, but they're also delicious. So your rabbit won't come to any harm. And I know my rabbit ate an Orbifolia and a Calathea medallion in one night, and she was 100% fine. In fact, she was healthy. She was healthy. She had big healthy poos. If you have rabbits, you'll know how important a big healthy poo is. But I don't know if it just like put the fear of God in my Orbifolia. I still have rabbits. I don't have the one that ate her, and I don't like. I learnt my lesson. I don't keep my plants anywhere near my rabbits anymore. Oh, she escaped. Like, it wasn't. She escaped from her pen. It wasn't like I didn't leave the Calathea out and expected her not to eat them. It was an accident, but there was always a possibility she could have escaped. So I made sure that only the plants that were safe for her to eat could potentially have got in her way. Unless she's going to be climbing shelves, like, she's fine. But anyway, this Orbifolia is just not, it's not, I don't think it's ever going to have more than 3 leaves. It's just, so it got down to 1, and this one looks sad. Like, I've seen worse, but I've seen better. And I thought that was it, and I thought maybe it was time. And then it grew 2 more leaves. And I don't know if this is just a cycle I'm doomed to repeat forever. It seems to really like it in leca. Like, these 2 leaves are certainly more than it was growing in soil. Like, it was not doing well in soil. And I'm not saying, like, when I say I put plants in leca as a last attempt, it's not really a last attempt at keeping the plant alive. It's more a last attempt at, basically I just want to see how easy it'll transition into leca. And by doing it on dying plants, like, I'm pretty sure Orbifolia is a good plant to put into leca because it did really well even though it was dying. I'm currently trying this experiment on a parlour palm that I bought because whenever I've bought a parlour palm, they've always had scale. They've always lasted a decent amount of time, but the scale's always got them in the end. Hilariously, this one didn't have scale, but it just died, and I can't find a single thing wrong with it. I just can't. Like, it's with other plants. It can't be the light because my other plants would have suffered first. It can't be the humidity because the humidity is fine. It's like 63, which is fine. So I don't know what it is. It's not scale. I've checked it with a bloody magnifying glass, but it's just, the whole thing's just like collapsed. So that's in leca, and we're hoping for a miracle. But this Orbifolia, why is it growing? It's December. Why is it growing now? I don't. Interestingly, as I'm saying this, it may very well be the anniversary of the fatal night when it got ate. Well, I have no idea if plants remember these things. Right, so that is it for this video. Please like and subscribe. Let me know if the noise from the fish tank is really distracting and annoying. I should already know because I'll have to watch this video several times whilst editing it, so I'll probably already know. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave me a comment and I will get back to you. And I will see you next week. Thank you very much. Bye.